My dad raised his glass, looked straight at me, and told everyone I was the mistake they decided to keep. For a second, the room went quiet in that way that feels louder than shouting. The fire popped. Someone's fork froze halfway to their mouth, and I sat there, smiling like a good sport, because that's what you do when your whole childhood has trained you to swallow the punchline. I'm Connor, the youngest of three, the oops, the one my parents talked around like I wasn't in the room. Josh was the golden boy, captain of something, always winning, always so driven. Lily was the sparkly one, the one who could talk her way into anything and get hugged for it. Me? I was the extra chair someone kept bumping into. Growing up, my parents didn't scream at me. They didn't need to. They perfected the soft version. The sigh when I walked in. The quick glance at the clock when I spoke. The little jokes at my expense that everyone laughed at, like it was bonding. Connor's our wild card, Dad would say at family gatherings, like I was a stray dog that kept wandering into the yard. Connor's sensitive, Mom would add, as if that explained why I should be ignored. When Josh forgot to call, it was because he was busy building his future. When Lily blew off a family dinner, it was because she had opportunities. When I showed up late because my car stalled, it was because I can't ever get it together. So when Josh suggested a reunion weekend at a mountain cabin, I should have said no. I knew the setup. I knew the roles. Still, I went. Because the part of me that wanted a normal family was louder than the part of me that knew better. The cabin was rented under Dad's name. Big, expensive, the kind with a hot tub and a stone fireplace and a view that begged to be posted online. We drove up Friday afternoon in separate cars, the road winding through pine trees and fog like something from a brochure. When I pulled in, Josh's SUV was already there, perfectly parked, of course. Lily's car sat angled like she drifted into the driveway for dramatic effect. I killed my engine and sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel, watching smoke curl from the chimney. I told myself, just make it through the weekend. Smile, eat, leave. The front door opened before I even grabbed my bag. "Connor!" Lily sang, arms wide, like she was greeting a long-lost friend instead of someone she'd ignored for months. She smelled like expensive perfume and cinnamon gum. I hugged her. She patted my back like I was a coworker she barely knew. Then she pulled away and did the quick scan. Shoes, jacket, hair. "Oh my God, you look tired," she said, bright and casual, like she was talking about the weather. Inside, Josh was by the kitchen island, slicing lemons for cocktails. He looked up and gave me a nod that felt like a manager acknowledging a temp. "Hey," he said, "you made it." Dad was in the living room, standing too close to the fireplace, drink in hand, like he owned the air. He saw me, and his face tightened for half a second before smoothing out. "There he is," he said, like he was narrating a documentary. "The Wanderer." Mom came from the hallway with folded towels like she was playing hostess. She kissed my cheek and held me a beat too long, as if she could squeeze the awkwardness out of me. "Your room is downstairs," she said quickly. "It's cozy." Downstairs, of course. That first night was fine on the surface. We had appetizers. Lily took pictures of the cabin corners like she was scouting a set. Josh talked about the company, meaning Dad's business, like it was already his. Dad laughed too loud and filled the space with stories where he was always the hero. Every so often, they'd ask me something. "So, Connor," Mom said over dinner, not looking at me, "what is it you're doing now?" I told them about my job, a decent one. I told them about my apartment, a small one. I mentioned I'd been taking night classes. "Oh," Josh said, mouth curling. "So you're still figuring it out?" I wanted to say, "I've been figuring it out without any of you." Instead, I nodded and chewed. Saturday morning, we did the whole fake family thing. A hike, hot coffee and travel mugs, Lily complaining about bugs, Josh setting the pace like he was leading troops, Dad pointing out landmarks and correcting anyone who dared guess wrong. At one point, I lagged behind to tie my shoe, and I heard Dad say, not quietly enough, "He's always been slow." Josh chuckled. Lily laughed with her hand over her mouth. Something in me clenched, then went numb. Micro-cuts like that were normal. They'd been sharpening me my whole life. I kept walking. Saturday night was the big dinner. The cabin had a long wooden table with enough chairs for a holiday commercial. Mom cooked. Lily arranged candles. Josh opened a bottle of wine with a smug little twist, like he'd learned it from a CEO handbook. Dad waited until plates were full, drinks poured, everyone settled. Then he stood up with his glass. "I just want to say," he began, voice warm and practiced, "it's good to have my family together." Lily smiled at him like he was a celebrity. Josh leaned back, satisfied. Dad continued, "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about the choices we make, the paths we take, the way one decision can change everything." He looked at Josh. "Joshua, you made me proud from day one. You took the hard road. You built something. You've got discipline." Josh didn't even pretend to be humble. He lifted his glass slightly. Dad looked at Lily. "And Lily. Always fearless. Always chasing bigger things. Sometimes you scare me, but you've got spirit. You're going places." Lily pressed a hand to her chest, like she'd won an award. Then Dad's eyes landed on me. "Connor," he said, and my stomach tightened before he even spoke the next word. Connor has always been Connor. A few small laughs, polite, expectant. Dad swirled his drink like he was savoring the moment. "We didn't plan for Connor," he said, smiling. "He just happened." The air went thin. "And listen," he added, like he was being generous, "I'm not saying it's all bad. We kept him. We did our best. Kept him." Mom's face flickered, but she didn't stop him. Josh stared at his plate like this was normal. Lily's smile got tighter, like she didn't want to ruin the photo. Dad lifted his glass higher. "To family," he said. "Even the surprises. Even the mistakes." My ears rang. My hands were cold around my fork. I felt every eye on me, waiting to see if I'd laugh along, waiting to see if I'd make it easy. So I did what I'd always done. I smiled. I raised my glass. I made a joke about being the bonus feature. They laughed, relieved. Dad grinned like he'd proven a point. That night, I excused myself early. I said I was tired from the hike. Mom told me to sleep in. Dad said, "Don't be so sensitive," like it was advice. I went downstairs, closed my door, and stood in the dark. My bag was half unpacked. My phone buzzed with a group text from Lily, something about brunch tomorrow. I didn't answer. Instead, I repacked in silence. Shirt, jeans, charger, keys. I moved like I was underwater, slow but determined. When my hands started shaking, I shoved them into my pockets until they stopped. At 2:17 a.m., I carried my bag up the stairs. The cabin creaked. The fireplace had burned down to embers. Everyone was asleep. I opened the front door and stepped outside into air so cold it felt clean. I put my bag in the trunk. I sat in my car. I didn't start it right away. For a moment, I stared at the cabin windows, glowing faintly. I thought about the kid version of me, waiting for someone to choose him, waiting for someone to say, "You belong." Then I started the engine. I drove down the mountain with my phone face down in the cup holder. When the first bar of signal appeared, it lit up with missed notifications. I didn't look. I turned it off. And by sunrise, I was gone in a direction none of them expected. Portland didn't fix me. It just gave me enough space to hear my own thoughts again. The first month, I lived like a ghost. Cheap, extended stay motel. 2 plates, 1 fork, a view of a parking lot and a vending machine that never worked. I paid in cash when I could. I kept my phone off most of the time. When it was on, it was for a new number, a new account, a new life that didn't have my father's voice baked into it. I told myself it was temporary, just a reset. Then weeks turned into months, and the quiet started to feel like oxygen. I found a job through a temp agency doing warehouse inventory. It was mindless work, but nobody there knew my family name. Nobody made jokes at my expense and called it love. If I did my job, I got paid. If I asked for help, someone actually helped. I moved into a small studio. 2nd floor, thin walls, a stubborn radiator that clicked all night. It was perfect. I built routines like armor, morning coffee at the same spot, gym after work, night classes twice a week. I met people who didn't ask about my childhood or my parents. People who thought family was something you chose, not something you endured. After a year, I stopped flinching when my phone rang. After 2, I almost forgot the cabin. Almost forgot the way Dad said "kept him" like it was a punchline. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, I came home and found a man waiting near my building's entrance. He wasn't trying to hide. Mid-40s, clean jacket, hands in his pockets like he belonged there. When I walked past him, he said my name. Soft, careful. "Connor?" My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. I didn't stop. I kept walking like I hadn't heard him. He matched my pace, not close enough to touch me, but close enough that I could smell his aftershave. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said. "Can we talk for 30 seconds? I finally turned, heart hammering. "Who are you?" He pulled a wallet out and held up an ID. Private investigator. His picture. His name. The kind of badge you'd see in a movie and laugh at. Except this was real, and it was standing 3 feet from my front door. "I was hired," he said. "I just need to confirm you're okay." "By who?" I already knew. He glanced down, then back up. "Your family." The word made my skin crawl. I looked around. People passing. A dog shaking rain off its fur. Normal life happening while mine tried to crack open again. "Tell them I'm fine," I said. "I can do that," he replied. "But I also have something for you." He reached into his bag and pulled out a thick envelope. It was sealed. My name was printed neatly across the front like it belonged in a court file. I didn't take it. He held it out anyway, patient, like he'd done this before. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I'm paid to find you. I found you. That's it." My fingers closed around the envelope before my brain could stop them. It felt heavy, not because of paper, but because of what it meant. They hadn't let go. "Have a good night," he said, and walked away like we'd just discussed the weather. I went upstairs, locked my door, and stood there with the envelope on my kitchen counter like it was a live thing. For 10 minutes, I didn't open it. Then I did. Inside was a short letter and a stack of printed emails. The letter was from my mother, written in her careful handwriting. "Connor, please. Your father had a stroke. He isn't the same. We need you." I read it twice, then again slower. like different speed would change the words. A stroke. I didn't feel sadness first. I felt anger, sharp and immediate. Like, of course this is what it takes for you to remember I exist. The printed emails were worse. Screenshots of messages sent to my old address. Subject lines like, please call and it's important and your father wants to talk. Some were from Mom, some were from Lily. One was from Josh, short and cold. Stop being dramatic. Come home. I stared at that one until my vision blurred. I didn't reply. I didn't call. I threw the papers back into the envelope and shoved it into a drawer like I could trap the past inside wood and metal. For a few days, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. I went to work. I lifted weights. I sat through class. But everything felt slightly off, like someone had tilted the floor. Then Lily showed up. I was leaving my usual coffee shop Saturday morning when I saw her at the corner table by the window. Same expensive coat, same perfect hair. Only this time, she looked like she'd slept badly for a week. She stood when she saw me, like she'd rehearsed the movement. My first instinct was to turn around and walk out. My second instinct, stupid, loyal, kept my feet moving toward her. Connor, she said, voice softer than I remembered. What are you doing here? I asked. I hated how steady my voice sounded, like I'd been expecting this. She swallowed. I didn't know how else to reach you. You could have tried caring 2 years ago. Her face tightened. That's not fair. I laughed once, sharp. Yeah, nothing ever is. We sat because it was either that or cause a scene. And Lily hated scenes unless she was controlling them. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a picture of Dad in a hospital bed. His face looked smaller, paler, his eyes half open like he was trying to focus. He can't use his left hand well, she said. He gets confused. Her voice cracked. Then she forced it back into place. He asked about you. I stared at the picture and waited for the feeling everyone expects you to have. Guilt, grief, some tug of reunion. What I felt was the cabin again, the toast, the word mistake hanging in the warm air like smoke. Did he ask? I said quietly. Or did Mom tell you to come? Lily's jaw flexed. Why do you have to make it like that? Because it is like that. She leaned in, eyes bright with frustration. You don't understand what it's been like. Josh is handling everything. Mom is a mess. He's scared. And you're out here playing. Whatever this is. This is my life, I said. It's not real, she snapped, then caught herself. I didn't mean, Connor, we're family. I held her gaze. Family is what you call people when you want them to tolerate things they shouldn't. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she looked like she didn't have a script. She reached into her bag and put a second envelope on the table. This one had a gold seal and my full legal name typed in a way that made my chest tighten. It's from a lawyer, she said. Certified. I didn't open it. Josh said you needed to see it. Josh said, I repeated. Lily's voice dropped. Connor, please just read it. I took the envelope and felt that same weight again. Not paper, pressure. I didn't open it there. I stood up instead. Lily grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to remind me she could. Don't do this, she said. I pulled my arm back. Tell Mom I'm sorry Dad's sick, I said. But I'm not coming home to be your excuse. Her eyes flashed. Josh is going to come here, she warned. He's done being patient. That stopped me. Josh, I said, and my stomach turned cold. He knows where I live? Lily's silence was the answer. I left the coffee shop with the certified envelope in my hand, rain starting again, and a single thought drilling through my skull. Josh was coming, and he wasn't bringing peace.